It had been months since that night. The one with the man on the roof. I told myself I was fine now, my body had healed, the nightmares had faded, but my mind still refused to rest. I couldn't sleep for long. Every time I did, I'd wake up to the sound of footsteps that weren't there, the memory echoing through my walls. Most nights, I'd just sit up in bed, staring out the window at the old pine tree that brushed against the glass. Watching. Waiting. Wondering if he was still out there. That evening, Clara was over. We were trying to feel normal again. Pizza boxes on the floor, a movie flickering on the TV, her head resting against my shoulder. For the first time in a long while, I felt calm. By midnight, we were both half asleep, wrapped in the soft hum of the television and the sound of the wind outside. And for once, I thought maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind me. But peace never lasts long when something out there still remembers your name. I don't remember falling asleep. All I remember is waking up, suddenly, like I'd been pulled out of a dream I didn't want to see. The room was still. Cold. The moonlight cut through the curtains in thin white lines, painting across the walls. I lay there for a moment, trying to steady my breathing. Then I heard it. Tap. A pause. Tap. Tap. It was faint, almost careful. Like someone testing the glass. My first thought was the tree branch. Maybe the wind had picked up. But it didn't sound like wood. It sounded intentional. I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were still, but there was something, a shadow, a movement, like someone was standing just outside. I froze. My chest tightened. Every hair on my body stood on end. I told myself it was just the wind, but the wind doesn't knock 3 times in a row. I whispered, "Clara." She didn't answer at first, just turned over, half asleep. "Did you hear that?" I said, barely breathing. She opened her eyes, confused. "What?" Before I could answer. Tap, tap, tap. She sat up fast, eyes wide. "Noah, what is that?" The sound was coming from right behind the curtain now. Soft. Measured. Human. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, the screen's light spilling into the darkness. My fingers trembled as I turned on the flashlight. The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was thick. Oppressive. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I stood up slowly, every step toward that window heavier than the last. Clara grabbed my wrist. "Don't," she whispered. But I had to know. I had to see what was on the other side of that curtain. And deep down, I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. I reached out with shaking fingers and pulled the curtain open, just an inch. At first, I thought the glass was fogged up. But then I realized, it wasn't fog. It was skin. A man's face, pressed against the window. Pale. Wet. His lips stretched into a grin that didn't belong to anything living. His eyes, empty, clouded, stared through me like he was looking past my soul. I stumbled back, choking on my breath. Clara screamed. I yanked the curtain shut and nearly fell, dragging her toward the door. We burst into the hallway, slamming it behind us. My father came running out of his room, shouting, "What's going on?" I could barely get the words out. There's someone at my window." My dad didn't believe in monsters. But when he came back inside that night, he didn't look like a man who still didn't believe. Dad grabbed the old shotgun from the cabinet and stormed out the back door, muttering something about trespassers. Clara and I waited in the hallway, every second stretching into eternity. Then came the sound of his boots crunching through the grass. His shout. Then silence. When he came back in, his face was pale as ash. He just said, quietly, "There's no one out there." But his voice cracked when he added, "There are footprints. Bare ones. Leading straight into the woods." That night, none of us slept. When the sun finally rose, I forced myself to go back into my room. The window was still locked. But smeared across the glass were handprints, long, greasy streaks, mixed with something dark. Something that looked like blood. I used to think monsters only came once. But now I know, some of them never leave. They just wait, until you forget the sound of their tapping.